Hi, welcome to our latest video in which I'm going to show you the assembly process of the Mech Frame for the upcoming 135 Mech 3D print files release. These are all the parts that are required for the frame. The parts are printed with M58, Resi1 M58, which is a tough and yet still sort of flexible resin. It's pretty ideal for this kind of articulated printed figures because it also has very little dusting, which is a great advantage. The parts are already airbrushed. I use a gunmetal, in this case the war paint gunmetal. Airbrush I can recommend. It's a bit tedious to clean, but it's super practical because you get all the small details left intact. It has such a fine spray and thin color layer. So let's get started. These are the parts for our Mech Frame. I'm gonna start with the hand parts. Some of these parts are snap fit, other parts requires nuts and bolts, but we get to that later. So, yep, good one. Okay, let's start with this hand. So, thumb. And here we go, one hand finished. As you can see, cool thing is the fingers are on ball joints. They move in 3 directions. Oh, it's a bit tight in the beginning. 3D printed resin usually loosens up after some time, so in the beginning it's super tight, then it becomes a bit loose. But you can tighten it up when it becomes too loose. Just use some small amounts of modeling clay, disassemble it, put some modeling clay into the cavities, press it in, and just the amount you need to get your desired state of rigidity. Alright, so one hand, the other hand are already assembled before. Right, next up is the lower arms. We're going to put the hand in the arms. Let's see, this is the left arm. Snaps right in. This is the right arm. Yeah, it's sometimes a bit tight, so be careful, be slow when you snap it so nothing breaks. If you're too hasty, it can break, so just gently and slow will do the trick. So, next step in assembly is, although I provided the 3D model, or will provide the 3D model with printed nuts and bolts, it's better to use metal nuts and bolts, of course. For this case, I use M2 size nuts and screws. The screws are 6 mm in length, or 1/4 inch. And here I have a pair ready. You can see them. Good thing is, if the joints loosen up after some time, you can just tighten them again. These are hex screws. On the other side we have a 6-sided inlay, perfect for the nut to fit in. And then just press on one side, hold the nut, tighten the screw, and here we go. Nice and tight elbow. So, up to the next one. Let's take out some of those. You need eight of those nuts and screws in total for each Mech frame. So, if you buy a pack, I don't know, usually come in sizes of 50 or 100 or so. These came in size of 200. So you can build plenty of mechs. and they're really cheap. So here we go, arms are done. Now the arms hold on to a clavicle, a barbell joint. It looks like this. You can just snap it in here. The mech frame and the individual mech designs, so the torso, cockpit, armor parts, will come separately. The reason for this is, first of all, I want to save bandwidth. The mech frame is the same for every mech design, so it's no use adding it to every different design, unnecessarily increase the file size you have to download. And with increased file size comes increased bandwidth, costs more energy, so it's a nice way to save energy. And it's a nice way to save costs. If I would add the mech frame to every mech design we offer, it would mean that you have much higher costs. So you just need to have the mech frame once, because you buy it once, you can print it as often as you like. And that way you will save a lot of money. You just pay for the individual mech designs you want to have and just print the frame as often as you like. So next to the leg assembly, the leg has a double jointed knee. As you can see here, it's a bit tight. Loosen it up a bit. Good thing about this method with the screws is that you can have it as loose or as tight if you want. Like if you wanted the mech for only display purposes on your shelf, you can have it super tight, so it doesn't fall over even during an earthquake or I don't know what. If you want to have it more loose, if you like to play more with the toys, you can have them more loose. So, and the last one here on the leg is the ankle. So, get all this nicely moving. And then we also have the foot parts. If it's too tight for your taste during assembly, you can also put them in a cup of hot water for 20 or 30 seconds, making the parts a bit soft. So it becomes much easier to assemble. And if you move it around a little bit, like on this axis, like I do in the beginning, they loosen up a little bit. So it's easier to post them later. But usually after a day or so, you can let them sit after assembly for a day or so, and it will loosen up a bit, because the material tends to shrink. This is relatively fresh printed, so still very tight. So next step is the foot parts. And then continue with the next leg, left leg. Oops. foot. So, this almost nicely. And the last part of the legs assembly is the rubber tires. You can actually print them with normal resin if you want to, but I prefer to print them with a flexible resin. This is like a rubber-like resin. You can use Resin F69 or their F80, which are rubber-like flexible resins. If you watched my previous videos about the mechs, you can transform the feet by twisting the toes about 180 degrees to tires. So you have a skating mode, which is a really nice feature. Alright, so this was the last leg. If it's too tight, be careful. If you want to loosen it up, only move it along this axis, like I do, in this direction. Because if you move it sideways, you can twist it sideways. But since the diameter of this ankle joint is much thinner in this direction than it is in this direction, it's much more stable in this direction. So be careful. If you want to loosen it up, twist it a few times, only in the front, back facing directions, and this helps a bit. And then you can start slowly pushing it sideways, because otherwise this part might break. So just be careful. But usually it's not that tight. I don't know. Maybe I put too much of the paint on this one. See, this here moves much nicer. Anyway, you can print it again if something like happens, if something breaks. It's not a big deal. It's a small part and it just costs a few cents to print it, so don't worry too much about it. Alright, so we got all our parts together. Let's assemble the legs. Legs are also snap fit ball joints. Put it in here. Those were pretty nice. Those also loosen up a bit over time, naturally. But, as I said before, you can use a little bit of modeling clay as a filler in the cavities, and then you're all set again. So here in the back there's a small roll bar that is snap fit. You can just push it in here, not too far, until it sits firmly. And in the back we have these fuel cylinders. These I didn't paint yet. This is the original appearance of the M58 resin. So also snap fit. Just put them in here. You can paint them later according to the color scheme you choose for your individual mech design, whatever you choose to go on top of this. And this is the base of the hip utilities. The hip utilities are small things like arms or sensor array, because it's just a, this is a mechanical thing. It's just practical. It would be use of space if you don't use it for anything. That could be of use to a mech, and you can just snap the parts on here. Alright, so, and the last thing is, since we are missing a torso now, we don't have a mech design here, we just have the frame, we're missing the torso. So, to show you how it stands together, I've also designed this little arm stand that basically goes on here. This is printed with a clear resin. Printed this with a Resin G217. Clear resin, very good resin. It doesn't come out as clear as this. You have to apply at least a layer of glossy varnish to get it as shiny and transparent as this. But it's really easy to do, and this is a tough resin. For transparent resin, it's super quality, it's super transparent quality, but it's still super tough. That means it's really nice for all sorts of applications, like windows, canopies and stuff like this. Or in this case, like as a small additional stand. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye!